Welcome to our little review session on globalization, or Unit 9. What is globalization? Well, this is a term that describes how trade and technology have connected the world. By the way, if you really want to get a good score on the AP test, you totally should get our $5 guide called Mastering AP World History. It comes with ready-to-go flashcards that will get you a 5 on the test. Check out the description for a link. All sorts of technology are important to globalization. Some made the world smaller, but most just had a huge impact not on nations but the entire globe. There were steamships, but they sank. What did these things do? Well, they allowed migrations to occur in the late 1800s. They allowed the Spanish flu to travel all across the world during World War I. What else do we have? Air travel, shipping containers, petroleum, nuclear power, birth control, the Green Revolution, antibiotics. It will serve you well to look up some of these items on your own. But the College Board, they also want you to know that diseases are still a thing. And they're still terrible, but vaccines have helped tremendously. In the second half of the 20th century, the environment became a big deal. And most of these problems cannot be solved by nations, you see. They are global, hence globalization. What are some of these problems? Good question. Air quality, deforestation, desertification, fresh water, greenhouse gases. Toward the end of the 1900s, the economy became global. Like everywhere you go, they take the American dollar. The most important development is something they call liberalized economies. What are those? That's when a government stops controlling an economy, like communism, and lets it just run itself. Think capitalism here. That word liberal is basically the same as freedom. There was also something that began called knowledge economies. Especially in advanced nations, information became the basis for business. Computers and the internet have a lot to do with this, I think.
Allison, can you explain what internet is?
With advanced nations using knowledge economies, most manufacturing moved over to Asia. That's why your iPhone comes from China. There were regional trade agreements too. These were set up between nations. For instance, NAFTA allowed free trade between Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Finally, enormous multinational companies like Nestle became much bigger than just one nation, with supply chains all over the globe. You remember that whole Enlightenment thing from the 1700s? Well, it turns out that not quite everyone got equality. Imperialism continued to create hierarchies, especially of Europeans, over their various colonies. And patriarchy still ruled in all societies. Social justice movements sought to correct those problems. Nelson Mandela fought apartheid in Africa, helping to bring attention to the plight of poor black people in South Africa. Communism helped to dramatically improve the rights of women in places like China, highlighted by the one-child policy, which encouraged work over family. Globalized culture replaced older, more local systems as technology made the world smaller. Things like shipping containers and the internet made everything around the planet more or less the same. This stands in stark contrast to nationalism of the 1800s. You can also draw a nice continuity all the way back to period 1 with cultural diffusion along the Indian Ocean. Despite all this globalization, or perhaps because of it, many small groups looked for recognition. If globalization tended to downplay nations, it really downplayed even smaller groups. In Spain, for instance, the Catalan people protested to have their language taught in school. Similarly, in Canada, an aggressive Quebecois movement highlighted the French-Canadian culture in North America. If you really want to get a good score on the AP test, you totally should get our $5 guide called Mastering AP World History.